Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Let's start off with the terminal here. Okay, let's do our usual stuff here, which is CD desktop, right? We're gonna do it fresh. What we're going to do, let me just take a look at here, my notes. Okay, we're gonna revisit array helpers, okay? And we're gonna touch a couple of extra array helpers. I know remember we did the coding exercise with array helpers? And we touched them, we kind of went over them. So I'm gonna come back to them because I'm gonna touch the ones that you're gonna absolutely use the most. And I implore you to use it and use them well, okay? So whatever, I'm just gonna do my usual get stuff here. So make directory, what's today? September 19 review. Cool. CD September 19 review. Okay, I'm gonna do a get init here. I'm gonna touch a file here, index.html. Our usual stuff, make it nice and easy to read. I'm gonna touch our first file. We'll call it for each.js. Okay, I'm gonna do my typical stuff, which is first commit. Oops, close. My VS Code's acting really weird. It doesn't recognize HTML files anymore. I don't know, it's weird. Cool.
I think you spelled the ending wrong.
No, I had HTML. Watch. See how it changes?
Oh yeah, that's weird.
Weird, right? And then if I go into it, like watch, it's so weird. And then I lose Emmet and everything. So I'm like, whatever, just forget about it. Can't win out everyone, you know? I gotta like format this computer. I don't know. Or at least get rid of VS Code, redo it. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, maybe you put an alias for the ending.
No, you can't do that. No, it's like it has to do with here. Like if I type HTML, it doesn't even exist. I have like embedded Ruby file, but that's not legit. It doesn't understand HTML. I have to.
Oh, yeah.
It just broke on its own on the last update, so I got to figure it out. I think it's a package that's conflicting with it. So, anyways, this is part of the joy. You will for sure experience such a joy. So don't worry, you're not going to be left out. Cool. You guys can follow along with it if you wish. It's not a big deal. There's nothing too crazy. So let's just say ES6 review. Let's do in the body here, just so we know it's working. ES6. Because you see here how it's giving me like weird code completion. Like watch. You see that? It's giving me Ruby code completion. Anyways, whatever. And before the body ends, we'll do a script tag, script source. Oops. What the heck? And then we'll do .js. It's for cool. Where the heck did I go? All right, cool. So we're all set up here. Jesus. I made this bar extra small so it wouldn't bother me, and then it still finds a way to like mess me up. project files. I'm sitting at a new setup that I did at my house, so I apologize if sometimes I do some weird stuff. I'm still trying to get used to it. Okay, cool. So let's do for each.js. Cool. So let's do a little recap here. For each MDN. You guys are using MDN now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys use W3 schools, just don't let anybody see you, okay?
Were they that bad?
Why is that?
Because there's a couple of things. First of all, it's not bad. If you're like looking for just a quick snippet and you want to get some ideas on how certain things look, or you want to get a couple of quick ideas on some like buttons or whatnot, okay, maybe. But there's front-end frameworks now like Bootstrap, Materialize, Skeleton. Like there's a lot of stuff out there, right? So you don't really need their style sheet. All this stuff is built for their style sheet. And then all of the stuff on their site is in line. Like they do like, they'll put a script tag and then start doing JavaScript in the browser. It's not really best practices. You're not really teaching anybody a good practice there. So it's like a reference material, maybe, which is a stretch. The only thing that I personally, this is my opinion obviously, right? The one thing I personally really, really like about W3 schools is their SQL portion. Because they have an in-browser SQL query maker and they have tables. You can like, and they have like their sequence of SQL steps and stuff, and like it gets progressively harder. It's like really well done. And SQL hasn't changed in forever. Like people writing almost the same SQL as like decades ago. Right? So while the JavaScript that they're using is a little bit outdated. Okay, anyways. Cool, so for each, let's just use, let's do a simple example here, right? Let's use var numbers is equal to our usual, our tried, tested, and true 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, this chair. See if I can move my couch. Ah, that's heavy, wow. Okay, cool. Okay, let's do, how would we do this with a for loop? We're just gonna do, so let's do it like a for loop version, right? You guys, you wanna walk me through the for loop here? So I'll do like a for loop like that, right? Numbers, right? That looks like something, right? And then we would say sum is the concatenate, what the heck? Okay, sure. Sum is the concatenated total of each number, right? What is going on? This keyboard's weird. Right? So if I print sum, right, I should get, right, 15. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's call this, okay, let's call this ES5. ES6, cool. So like, here's the thing. Are you guys still writing for loops? Like honestly,
Yeah,
are you?
once in a while.
Okay, but like, and what's your use case for a for loop? Like when do you lean into a for loop?
Iterating through an array.
So when you're doing something like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just accept Celia's silence as yes, she does write for loops.
Ideas.
Okay, from now on, you're gonna stop writing for loops. Like no more for loops. There's nothing wrong with the for loop. This works, okay? This works, but you're gonna stop writing for loops, like period. And I'll explain to you why. First of all, there's a lot of logic that goes into the for loop. it's really easy to make a mistake. I do it all the time, okay? Because you got to initialize the variable. You got to keep track of your array. And then you got to increment. And then you got to put some logic. And like you see this here, what does this represent? Represents each number in the array, right? Or each element in the array, let's say, right? And like the issue with that is, again, it's really easy to lose track of it. So like, let's say this is a simple for loop. It's really simple, right? But like, let's say you get your first day at the job, right? You go check out somebody's code. If you look at this for loop, just looking at it, honestly, I actually have to go after like, okay, obviously I know so I'm like, okay, I'm starting at index 0, and then, okay, I'm climbing up the array, and what am I actually doing? Okay, I'm gonna add each number of the array to a sum. But where's the sum? Oh, the sum is up here. Oh, here's the array. You know what I'm trying to, you don't know the case I'm trying to make? Mm-hmm. So like honestly, just get rid of the for loop. So we're gonna just like totally abolish the for loop here. So, you know, essentially this is the deal. Okay, I'm gonna go over the for each, which you've seen before. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's exactly the same thing. I'm just gonna use the shorthand here. And this is numbers. Okay, and you remember that this is arbitrary. There's a convention. Collections are plural. Iterator is a singular. This function here, okay, this is called an iterator function, okay? All of the array helpers use an iterator function, which is what you guys know as a callback. Okay, cool. So we're basically going to loop over the array, incrementing the sum variable. Cool. So what ends up happening now is we're going to do something like sum plus equals the number. What the heck? What in the heck is going on here? Jesus, this keyboard's really weird. Cool. So let's just do something here. Let's put this in here. Obviously, sum is not defined. So we're going to take sum out. Right? And we're going to log the sum. And you're going to get the same answer, okay? Now watch something that's cool here. So you guys are familiar with this. We've seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one question. Like, why does the sum work without having to be in a variable?
It isn't a variable. It's up here.
Yeah, I know, but like, why does that work?
What do you mean, why?
Without you having to specify like a variable or something else.
You mean here?
Yeah, for the sum.
Oh, because you're declaring it up here. So remember lexical scope? It's going to reach out. It's going to say, where is this declared? Oh, it's not declared in here. I'm going to look into the global scope, which is what
I understand that, but like even in the global scope, I was used to seeing like variables.
Oh,
or
like you're talking about like that, right?
Like the name, yeah.
That is a good question. I believe it's because it's hoisted. So basically, it just kind of fills it in. It's like, okay, you forgot to put var. I'll just make var the de facto.
The default, okay.
Yeah, which is actually a good catch because that you should declare it. It's bad practice not to. I thought you meant like here, because here I wouldn't declare it, right? But anyways, cool. So that was a good catch. Incrementing. There we go. I got a spell check. I got a spell check now because I was tired of getting pull requests back with like transposed letters.
It's because of the the style of the letters as well. Because you made it your own style, and sometimes since they're what is that called? Cursive.
Cursive, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, we have somebody
Cursive,
else
I think
here
it's
now?
harder to spot if you made a mistake.
Yeah.
But it looks more stylish at the same time. But
Yeah, it's only for comments. Nobody takes. I don't take comments seriously.
oh, okay.
That was JK. Okay, cool. So we're here. We're good with this, right? We're good with this. So let's see something cool. Now, there's a couple of things here that you guys need to understand, right? You see this callback? Remember how I showed you guys how callbacks work, right? Check this out. Let's take the function out. Let's call it adder. Let's call it add. Right? So now it doesn't work, right? But check this out. See how it works now? So what does this tell us? It tells us that array, see these array helpers, right? You can actually just have an array helper that just accepts a callback. And then you can define, for example, you can do something like, it just accepts a callback. And then you can just define different helpers. Like, for example, you could do function divide, right? And then it takes a number, right? And that number is basically, I don't know, number divided by 2. By 2. Right? And then we'll have to save it into something. We'll just do sum plus equals number divided by 2. Right? So, and then you could just do the same thing, but divide. Divide by 2. See? Let's use whatever. I'm just showing different cases for it, right? Cool. So where is this kind of useful? It's basically, the question is when to use the for each helper. That's the real question here, right? Like when do we want to use it? It's whenever we want to call some method multiple times, passing in a different argument each time. Okay? So what that means is if you have a data set, okay, any data set, okay, and you want to go if you want to go for a walk through the array and do something to each item on the array, don't lean on a for loop. Go straight to a for each. That's number one use case. So I'm going to write it down here, okay? And seriously, just know that. When people are writing for loops and they send you a pull request, okay, on your final project, don't approve it. Go back. I'm serious. Don't approve it. Be like, listen, this works, but try refactoring it using a for each, and explain it. No, seriously, and then explain it to those people, because what's going to happen is you want to be the engineer. Seriously, you want to be that engineer who passes the knowledge to the other engineer, even if you're junior.
Yeah.
But you want to be that engineer that can explain this stuff to people. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go to a job interview. They're going to ask you some kind of palindrome or something, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm going to use some helpers here. I'm going to lean on some array helpers, condense it out, boom, boom. All of a sudden, you could have taught that interviewer something, and that's an instant hire. No joke. So anyways, whenever we want, I'll write down the use case here. Whenever we want to call some method multiple times, that's the key here, multiple times, right? While passing in a different argument each time. So this is each element in the array, okay? This is the use case. always. Okay, so let's do another example here. Let's do some other random examples here. Like let's say let's use posts. Remember we had posts the other day? So let's do some, okay, let's do example number 1. Let's say refactor for loop into a for each function. Cool? So we're going to do function handle post, and it's going to take actually it's not going to take anything, right? And inside this function, inside the body of this function, right, I'm going to, actually I'm using prettier, so I shouldn't really care. I'm going to make a post object, right? And this is actually something you would probably get back from, let's say, an Ajax call. Like, so if you have an app, like let's say your final project is a blog of some kind, right? And you make an Ajax call to the backend, and then you're going to get back some data from the database, whether it's Mongo or MySQL or Firebase or whatever you guys decide to do, right? And like usually the structure is like this. You have an ID, right? And you have a title. Let's say, I don't know, whatever the title is, right? Let's say the title is first post, right? And then we're going to do ID, I don't know, 52. I don't know, I'm just making this up. And then this is my second post. And then I'm going to put commas in these bad boys. And this is my final post. And let's call it, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. Cool? So this kind of makes sense, right? And then what would we do when we wanted to kind of like, I don't know, call some function that like saves the post? Like, you know what I mean? So like, let's say this is coming in from a form or something like that, and then you're gonna call, this is just pretend here. This save post is not actually implemented. So you want to call save posts, right? Something like that. So let's say for the posts, and this should be plural. Okay, so what's going on here? We're going to save post. Okay, cool. So this isn't actually like fully legit. Let's just say save posts anonymous function const. Okay, we'll do it the other way. We'll do the old school way, man. Save post, which takes a post, right? I don't know, whatever. Let's just say it logs the post, right? Cool. So we're not going to call it. I just don't want any errors on it, right? So let's just say, you know, pretend it like saves the post on the back end via Ajax. Cool. And this is something that you guys would probably be implementing, right? Like this is like real world for you guys, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how normally, based on what you told me, this is how you would implement it. You would get like the information from like a form that somebody fills in, right? And then you'd loop through that form information, like the params, right? And then you'd pass it to a function that would save each one into the database, right? But like, here's the issue. First of all, a lot can go wrong with this. What happens if you forget to increment it? What happens if you forget semicolons? What happens if, for whatever reason, you use variable I somewhere and it no longer is 0 by the time this thing finishes running the Ajax call? Like there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong, right? So let's do ES6 refactor. Cool. So we're going to just copy this bad boy here. right? We're just going to copy this and we're going to get rid of this trash. Cool. So we're going to do, and look at the difference here. We're just going to do for each. I'm going to write it out here. I use snippets. Have you guys used snippets at all?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. I use snippets a lot because I'm lazy. Okay. The function. So basically it takes a callback, okay? So like, the post for each takes a function. The function needs a parameter. That parameter is going to be your post. By convention, it's always singular of the array data, okay? So that when somebody reads it, like if somebody were to come here and read this, they would kind of have to like go through it and then kind of figure out what's going on. While this one here, because you got to understand, see this right here? This may actually not be a hard-coded object. This may be something like posts equals an array, and then the array contains objects from params. So you don't really know what the heck that technically is, right? You'd have to kind of go through the code a little bit. Well, if you look at the for each, you go, okay, I have a post, and then for each post in the array, I'm just going to save that post. That's all I'm going to do. And that's done. Now, like when you look at these two, it's not like it's not less characters to type, but the whole point of ES6. So ES6 has two categories, okay, guys? It has new functionality and syntactical sugar. I know I touched syntactical sugar before, but all syntactical sugar means is making things more legible and easier to write. Okay? New functionality is self-explanatory. So like, does that example make sense? Like, would you be able to refactor this on your own? Is that a no or a yes?
Yeah, it's straightforward.
Cool. And Celia, are you cool with this?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so whenever you're going to reach out for a for loop, just think for each. And the way I remember it is literally for each. When I'm saying to myself, for each item, like when you pseudocode, if you ever find yourself saying for each item, I want to, and that's instantly stop what you're doing, and that's a for each loop. Okay, so let's just say example 2, processing values.
And one question when you put the save post and pass the post, then I saw that you're iterating. That's where you put the iteration of each.
Yes.
Like the index.
Yeah. So it's actually the beauty of the array helper is you no longer need to track the index of something. So posts at I is the same thing as a post.
Okay, because it's already going to each. Okay.
Exactly, because here you're saying posts plural. So give me the particular item of this array at this time that I happen to be looking at it. That's what this statement's actually saying, like posts at I. So like there's really no need. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going through a collection of posts, then I'm looking at one post at a time. Therefore, why do I really care about the index? Like I actually have access to the index. So it actually has access to the index and the original array. But we don't do that. We don't need to, we're not using it, so we don't really care, right? And you can see here, look, see parameters post has an ID and a title. You see that? It actually has access to it. It knows exactly what I'm talking about. While this one here will just be the ID. The index, which is a number, it's a parameter. And it will just tell me it's 0, 1, 2 in this particular case. And you can see when I save it, it still works. Like, well, I mean, we're not console logging anything, but it still works. It doesn't like give you an error. Okay, cool. So let's do something else here. Let's do something like, let's calculate the area of each image and store that in a new array. Let's do that. Okay, cool. So like, let's say okay, where this, I'm trying to think of use cases in applications, like stuff that I do all the time, which you're gonna have to do on your final projects, right? So, and this is stuff, like you guys are using React. Are you guys gonna use React at all?
Yeah.
Yep.
So React is gonna use a lot of this kind of stuff where you may not necessarily use for each all the time on React. You will use it on like on the server side a lot, but you're going to use a lot of map, which we're going to move on to next right away. But this is kind of like the starter code for it. Okay, so I'm going to say like for example, let's say you're on your back end, right? You are getting like a bunch of, you have like a bunch of, I don't know, images, and you want to display them as an avatar for a user. Like like you know what I'm saying? You have like a model for a user, and they can save a picture, an avatar picture, right? But you want to make sure that like you you just want to know what the area of that picture is in pixels or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? So let's say here, let's say calculate the area of each, I don't know, image and store that in a new array. Cool. So let's just say our usual stuff var image is equal to an array of objects, okay? You notice that it's always array of objects. This is the kind of stuff you're going to be getting back from the server all the time. Your front end will always spit back an array of objects. So just get used to that. It seems a little bit weird at first, but you're always going to be working with array of objects, okay? So let's just say each image has a height, I don't know, 10, and has a width, obviously, else we can't calculate area, right? And let's say it's 30, I don't know. Let's just say this is 40. Let's just say this is 50. This is 20. 10, 20, 30, 40. I don't know, whatever. It's arbitrary anyway. And let's just say, okay, so we have var area is equal to an empty array, right? So why am I doing this is there's a big reason why, okay? Never mutate your original data, okay? There's a big reason for this. This stuff is coming from your backend, let's say, right? And let's say you're trying to calculate the area so you know what kind of a div you're going to make. Like let's say for whatever reason you're trying to calculate the size of the image so that you know, for example, that image is good enough to display or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making something up here, right? But you don't want to lose the original data. Like you don't want to replace images with just a calculation of area. You want to still retain the height and the width, right? That makes sense, right? So you can't just, for each will actually mutate the data, okay? So like the solution, we're not going to use a for loop here. You're going to see, like you could do a for loop. The for loop you would have to, for each while I is 0 and it's less than the length of the array and increment, then inside we would say like something like, okay, let's do the for loop. Let's do here solution ES5. We'll say 4. Let's use a smaller one here. Let's say this is images, okay? We're gonna say, let's say area.push, right, is image I, like you see how this is now going to be really weird. Image I dot height. I don't even know if this is going to work. Let's just see console.log. Okay, that works. Image height times like you see, I wasn't even sure if this is even going to work. Like I have to like double check it, and this is width, right? And then I'm going to log area. Cool? Makes sense, right? Now, if you were coming in, like you see how the more complexity you put into a for loop, the harder it becomes to look at it. Like if you were to come here at this for loop, if I were to give you this for loop, like you'd literally have to figure out, okay, it's an image and the height property multiplied the width, and then I'm gonna loop through it, and then I'm pushing, oh, here's the, yeah, okay, I see what's going on, and then I can work with it, right? While like ES5, solution, ES6, what the heck, get out of here. Okay, ES6, we're gonna use the helper here, and watch, image, we're gonna do for each images, and we're going to keep it at each image, and all we're going to do is we're going to say area dot push, same deal, image dot height multiplied by image dot width. Done. Console logs the area. You see how much nicer this is though? Like I don't really have to do too much thinking about, okay, do I have to get each item at each index? Is this even right? Is it gonna work with dot notation, or is it gonna work with like square bracket notation? Like this is much closer to what you guys do every day, especially with React. This is kind of like where React started moving, and all these frameworks started moving, using dot notation and getting away from these weird old long written stuff. Cool. So that was a little bit of a teaser. So let's save it here. Okay, let's do git add completed the for each helper lesson, or refresh. Cool. Now, okay, we're going to get a new clean slate here. The heck? Wow, it doesn't even give me. Wow, it's so trash. It won't even give me the, I can't even do a comment. Whatever. Cool, so let's do map. Just let me know if you have any questions, man. Okay, let's do touch map.js, right? We're going to put, cool. And then we're going to do map.js and then GA. Added map to the files. I was going to do a quick alias here. I'm going to alias GA2 equal git add dot. I'm going to do alias git commit to be git commit dash m. The way I'm doing this alias here, it's only going to work in the instance of this terminal, okay? So if I do like a line space, save. Oh no, it's not. Prettier's killing it. Okay, cool. Okay, so map, by the way, map is like single-handedly the most used function you're going to ever deal with, okay? Especially in React. You guys have done map in React, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So have you seen a lot of use case for map in React?
Sorry, what was that?
Have you seen a lot of use cases for map in React?
Yes, a lot. It's for API information handling.
Okay, perfect. So you guys are using map, or you're still trying to get into the for loop situations?
What do you mean with that?
Like, are you using map to go through collections of data? Because like the
Oh,
way
yeah.
the way a lot of the front end frameworks work now is you'll make a call to the server. The server is going to return JSON data back, right? But you don't want to dump that data. Like, you don't want to lose that data. So what you always do is you copy the data into a new set, and then you do something with it, right? So let's go with, let's do here var numbers. So we're gonna do exactly that. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And let's do like a var doubled nums is equal to an empty array. Okay, so we're gonna double some numbers here, right? And I'm gonna show you why it's super important. Okay, so we're gonna do ES5 for loop. We're gonna mimic the map functionality, or we're gonna mimic how map works. Okay, so we're basically gonna do like what map actually does under the hood. Okay, this is actually what it's doing. This is part of the syntactical sugar. So before map was around, people were doing exactly this. They were going like create a new array, go into your loop through your array. You're going to do double nums dot push into that new array, and I'm going to push numbers at I times 2. Double the. Cool. Right, and then we're gonna do like a log, and then we're gonna do doubled. You guys ever do this, by the way? When you're doing like debugging, just put a little string in front and then a comma, and then you see how it comes out. It's like a neat little trick, okay? It's like really handy for when you're trying to figure out, like when you have a bunch of console logs all over the place, right? And we're not going to use doubled nums. We're going to use numbers. Cool. So the doubled, you see, this is basically what I was trying to prove here, is that, okay, so we're basically pushing new stuff to the new array, right? So this is how it was done for a long time in like basically vanilla JS. This is how it was done. There was no other real solution, right? So like at the end of the day, this proves that mapping over an array only duplicates the array and returns a new array always. So I'm going to put new always, okay? With the same number of elements, okay? This is the key here, okay? This is the key here. If you're going to remember something, what the heck? If you're going to remember something, it's going to be that it always returns a new array with the same number of elements, okay? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use the map helper here, map helper, and then we're going to say var doubled, and we're going to I'm going to start doing some more advanced stuff as we go. So now we're not going to do, like you see here, we have to like double, do all this nonsense. We're not doing none of that stuff anymore, okay? We're just going to do a one line. We're going to do just straight one-liners, okay? So we're going to say doubled is numbers dot map, right? And then we're going to say function. Now, have you guys gotten exposure to arrow functions?
Yeah.
Like, are you guys using arrow functions, I should be saying?
Yeah.
You are, right? Celia, you using arrow functions?
Not too much.
Not too much? Okay, we're going to change that. You're going to use arrow functions. Okay, so there's a caveat. You can't use arrow functions everywhere, but you're going to use arrow functions 95% of the time. Okay? Seriously. Okay? Now, there's a big caveat here. You must return something when you use a helper.
Hey Dennis, when you don't use arrow functions?
Okay, that's actually one of my lessons. When to use and when not to use.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, because the people start going, when they learn arrow functions, they use arrow functions everywhere, and then they're like, what the hell are all these bugs? What the fuck's going on? Like, you know what I mean? And then I have to go and look at the pull request and be like, dude, let me explain to you how arrow functions work. Which is cool. It's cool. I was there. I had to learn somehow. I wasn't born with this knowledge. I learned by making mistakes, and that's the way it goes, right? Make sure you use a return. Okay, so here, I'm going to put this here. One of the biggest things that holds people back from using array helpers is that they just get a bunch of, so we'll do it here, right? Make sure you always use a return statement, okay? I can't stress that enough. If something weird happens, you know what that is? You didn't use a return statement. You see that? Do you know why that happens? And it's not only array helpers that does this. Like, let's do something here. Function. Let's do a simple function that just logs console.log hello. Right? Nothing crazy here, right? What the heck did I do? Function. Looks good to me. Bar. Okay, cool. Stupid console always. Okay, so here's, you see how this returns undefined? Although it works, you see? If I call it, it returns, it console logs hello, but it also returns undefined. There's a reason for that. All functions in JavaScript return undefined, regardless, unless you have a return statement. Okay? ES6 is no different. There is an exception, which we will talk about in a bit, but the best way for you to think, if I ever have a function and I want to get something back from it, I must use a return statement. Okay? You're gonna see here, okay, undefined, right? The minute I put a return statement, when it reloads, look at that. Done. Okay? And just for doubled, okay? And you can see here, see how doubled is the same as the previous one? It's exactly the same thing. Now, do you not agree that doing something like this is infinitely easier than setting up an array, setting up the for loop, keeping track of the index, making sure you push that onto that old array, and then having that logged outside? While here, you just literally say, okay, give me my array. Let's look at each item in the array and multiply by 2. The map function will always return a new array. Always. So you don't have to worry about setting it up or doing anything, okay? That's why it's so popular and so widely used. GC. See, this is how lazy I am. I didn't want to do the -m. So now I added the -m to my alias. So now I just do GC first map example done. Being lazy is good. Sorry, man. Okay, cool. So let's do a more complicated example from map. Okay, let's ramp it up here. More complicated example. Let's do an. Hello? Sorry?
I have a question.
What's up?
See how we're doing this like ES6, which is like much more simplified than like ES5.
I would. It's more. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So is there still a need for us to like find through ES5?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, I would say you need to know ES5 over ES6. And then, and only then, should you even touch this stuff. The reason why is the map function. You see this right here? This is actually what it's doing. That's why I wrote it out like this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do something wrong, like for example, you must have a return statement, right? Unless you understand how this stuff works, you wouldn't understand why you need a return statement. And the reason why you would need a return statement is because here you're pushing to an initialized variable. While this one here, you're just doing math and then returning nothing. So unless you kind of really understand how everything works, then you really shouldn't be touching ES6. And like, it's kind of like you can't run unless you walk. You can't walk unless you crawl, right? I know maybe that's not a great example, but does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, let's ramp it up here. Okay, let's do an array of cars. I don't know, whatever. Let's say bikes. Whatever, cars. I like cars. Okay, var cars is equal to this array here. And again, we're gonna use objects only. And a car, there's a model for the car. And I don't know, let's call it a Chevy. Right? And a Chevy, it has a price. And let's say, I don't know, the price is cheap. I don't know, whatever. And let's say we have another model. Let's call it a BMW. And the price for a Beamer is expensive. Cool. Just like dummy data here, right? And like, this is like super, super, super common practice. So like, for example, this is very common practice in the front end frameworks. Let's say like React, right? For extracting data from a backend response. Ajax. Cool? Does this statement here make sense? Does it make sense? No? Basically what I'm saying is, you make an Ajax call, you get back some data that you're saving in your response, right? You know, like the dot then, like success. Mm-hmm. You save something. It's always a JSON object, right? And then so this would be your like dot then data response, and then but you get like a collection. Like let's say you're looking for all cars, right? So you call the back and you sell them like, okay, I want to find out all the cars. I want to find out all the prices for cars and display that to like a user. So like let's say you go to Auto Trader, right? And then you like, I want to see the prices of cars. Let's not worry about like any other data. I just want to sort them by price or something like that, right? So then you would go get all the cars, and then you would get all the information about the cars along with that. And then in that you would go, but you don't want to like well, you could do a filter, but in this case we're going to use a map. We'll use filter next, actually.
Okay.
Cool. So it's just different use cases. There's different approaches, but map is like a little bit better because filter, you could filter down to just one item. But anyways, because you want to find the price for every single car in your database, not just a couple of cars. That's what I should say. That's a better explanation of where I'm going with this. But you're correct. If you want to find out like the cheapest car, you would use a filter for sure. So you're on the right track. So let's say we're gonna map through all the cars. So prices is gonna be a map of all the cars, right? And we're gonna use a function here. Come on. It's anonymous. And I'm going to go through each car. And for each car, I'm going to return. Remember, keyword return. I cannot stress that enough. Without return, you're just wasting your time.
Does every function need a return always?
Not every function, but all the helper functions require a return. So like it really depends. Like if you want to have an evaluation from a function, like if you want to be able to pass something from one function to another function, you must have a return statement. Otherwise, it doesn't return anything. It just does what it does, and then that's it. It doesn't do anything. But without a return statement, there's nothing to hand off. There's no ball to go from one quarterback to the player. Does that make sense?
So a return is pretty much like when data is being passed between different functions.
It gives the function a computed value. Well, maybe that's not the greatest explanation either, but it gives the function like a final value that it could pass on. Whether you use it to pass on or not, that's a different story.
Final value, okay.
But it gives you like a final value. Otherwise, the function will always return undefined. Even though it does finish the computation, like we saw in the console. It console logs hello if you call it, but normally it actually has no return value. It console logs hello and then it returns undefined. So if you're trying to use the computed value with another function, it would just get back undefined from it.
Okay, so basically the functions that don't have a return,
They return undefined.
they return undefined. So it's a good practice to include them when you want to return something.
Yes, when you expect to get a specific value from a function. Now you have to be careful because a return statement would kill the function. So let's say if I had a bunch of code here, like some code, some other code, some other code, and then I was expecting this code here. Don't worry about what it says. I was expecting this code to like be my final output. If I have a return statement up here, we'll never get to this. We'll just kill the function right away.
So you mean like if you have a return statement before like if you have code in the bottom that you want to get back, but your return statement it's after that or before that you were mentioning? That's
Yes.
where you won't get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like so basically like you want your return statement. Your return statement will kill everything. So once it's literally like once as soon as you hit the state, if you hit the code and it has a return statement and it computes a value, it will not execute anything else in that function.
Oh, okay. I see.
Right? So, where was I? Okay. Oh, yes. So, there's another thing here. You see this here? We're going to get the price from the cars array. So, we're getting only one thing from our whole collection. This could be like thousands of cars on AutoTrader. You know what I mean? So, like, this is actually how they do it. So, this is actually called something specific. This is referred to as a pluck. As a pluck or plucking data. You're gonna hear this in the wild. If anybody asks you, you tell them, hey, yeah, just pluck the data. And if people are like, what the hell are you talking about? And you want to be that engineer that explains to them, like, hey, wait a minute. I'm sure you know about it, but this is what it is. Like, I'm not saying go crazy on terms, but just know them. So when you're talking to somebody, there's a good chance you know what the heck they're talking about. You just need to know exactly what that reference is. You know what I'm saying?
Plucking data. So that means
we're gonna pluck the price.
Tapping into it.
Yeah, we're just going to pluck the price. So we're going to do a console log here of price says. Okay, cheap and expensive. We don't have any value. It could be like, I don't know, you can put like 15,000 and this is, 45,000, right? As soon as you save it, it changes. See what I mean now? Right? So the takeaway here is that you could loop, I could have done it with a for loop. There's nothing wrong with that, but why do it? I would have to set up a prices array, first of all. Then I would have to do my usual loop. Then I would have to go into the index. Then I would have to push. And it's just the more steps you add to something, number one, the less performant it is. So it's slower. Number two, you're just opening it up for errors. Number three, whoever you have to look at, it's just going to take them longer to give you some feedback. And they may not even understand what the heck is going on. So you may not even be getting the proper feedback that you deserve. Like, hey, I want to learn something. Can you look at my code? Somebody looks at it like, there's a bunch of for loops. Yeah, whatever, it's good. You know what I mean? Because then people are like, whatever. If you see a map, right away I know what you're doing. Oh, you're copying this array. Why? Oh, it's a response from the server. Got it. I don't have to think. So like, and this is literally what it comes down to. Like, I can't tell you how many apps I've worked on and how many apps you guys are gonna work on, where like literally the primary goal of most web apps is just to render lists of data. I'm gonna repeat that because it's a big thing that people don't seem to understand. Think of any application, like literally think of any app, and all it's really doing is rendering lists of data. I don't care what the heck it is. You think, and then people are like, oh, what about Instagram? It's a bunch of pictures. Yeah, it's a list of pictures. It's a list of data because you don't get a picture from an AJAX call. You get a reference to a file on a server or a file on a cloud. It's a list of data. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Facebook, it's a list of posts. Twitter, same thing. AutoTrader, list of cars. Like, you pick anything. Literally pick anything. It's always going to be a list of something, okay? So I'm going to write that down. The primary goal of most web apps is just to, let's just say, are just rendering lists of data. This is why map is the most popular array method, array helper. Mainly because it does not mutate your data. So what does that mean? It means like if you get that call, okay, let's say you make one call. Like you make one call to your server. So let's think about your final project here, okay? Let's say you're like, I don't know, let's say you're making like a Facebook clone or a Twitter clone. Let's say a Twitter clone, right? And somebody goes onto your app and you're gonna list like everybody's posts, right? Like everybody's tweets. So what ends up happening is this. You make one call to the server and says, give me all the tweets. And then you show that. But with that same call, you're not gonna make a second call to display the name of all the people in their tweets. Or you're not going to make a third call to display the message of the tweet. You're not going to make a fifth call to display the people who've liked the tweets, and so on and so on and so on. What you do is you make one call, and then you use different map functions to pluck the data and display it as you decide. Does that kind of make sense? No?
So I have a question. You know, for this map function, so the array that you're creating is always in plural,
Mm-hmm.
like prices or prices or prices.
Prices is our copy. Cars is our original.
Cars is the original, and prices is the. So it's always in plural.
Plural for collections, yes. Convention. Always, always,
And then
always.
inside the function, you're always using the singular. And
Correct.
the map helper is supposed to recognize that car is like
Okay,
one
so let's do this. Watch this.
of the cars. Like it will just automatically.
You see the change I made?
I'm sorry.
Look at the change I made.
Mhm.
You see how it still works? I'll do it again. Arbitrary random nonsense. Re-render still works. This here is arbitrary. You can call it whatever.
It can be anything, right?
Anything you want, like my mom is awesome. And she's awesome apparently.
So it could be like A, X, Y, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said by convention, you always use the singular of the array. So like whenever you make a call to the server and you call it, you can call it data if you want, but like if your data is like a list of cars, then call it cars. If your data is a list of users, then call it users. Like, don't make it complicated for yourself or other engineers. Because what's going to happen is somebody goes to look at that pull request, and then you have like for loops, you have like, you know, concatenation with pluses, you have like x's and y's and a's for variables, and like all sorts of weird, like not weird, but you have all sorts of stuff that's not easy to read. People are just going to spit that back to you. Some engineers will go back to you and tell you, I'm not reading that. I'm not spending an hour on this pull request. Refactor that.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, it's happened to me.
Okay.
It's happened to me where people send me back and they're like, I don't like those variable names. Please change them. I was like,
Oh.
but it works. And they're like, yeah, but I can't. I looked at it. I can't follow it by looking at it. So change it. And I thought they were being dicks, but really they taught me a lesson. Make sure that it's understandable and follow convention as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. It's the same with prices. So prices is also arbitrary, right? You can name it anything.
Anything you want, yeah. In this case, we're plucking the prices of all the cars because each car has a price, but I want a collection of prices. You see how like I'm wording it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
That's very nice.
Cool. Let's step it up here. Okay, well we did a couple of things. Okay, let's do like something really simple here. Let's do another simple one, and then we're gonna step up our game here, which is gonna be we're gonna do a challenging one. Actually, let's do a challenging one because you guys know, like for example, like here, if I want, I could do any math here too. Like if I want to do return prices times 2, for example, I could just do that. And you see how it doubled it? You can do whatever you want. Prices divided by 2. Whatever you want, right? So you can do any math. You can do whatever you want. The point is that if you want to modify the data that's coming in, you want to use a map so that you don't touch the original one. Like if I console log, let's see, ct console.table, and I want to console.table cars, right? You see how I don't change anything, even though I've done this, right? Let's say I do multiplied by 2. You see how the original one stays the same? That's what I'm trying to get at. And that's why I said the primary goal of most web apps is literally to just display data, right? And then when you're displaying that data, you're going to do different stuff with that data, but you want to maintain your original data so that your server doesn't have to keep calling the backend. Every time you call the backend, that's a delay. If you have to call the backend like 100 times to display one post, like if Facebook had to make 100 calls to the backend to display one post because someone hit like on it, nobody would use Facebook. It would just sit there and load forever. You know what I'm trying to say? And that's why they created React. This is why React is modular. Each component self-renders. It's, even though you have components that are nested, each one kind of operates in its own singular way. And these are the issues that they were trying to solve, right? Okay, cool. So let's do a challenge here. Let's do a challenging one here. Challenge. Okay. Let's implement a different pluck. Let's implementing pluck on a real world project. Like is this stuff kind of making sense with what you guys would be doing on your final projects? Like I want to make it as to the point and as not like, oh, this is a map. Okay, great, bye. Like I want to make it so that you can see how this stuff applies to your real app, not just like some random activities that we do in class. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay, and just let me know if it doesn't apply, and then I'll modify it, right? So, okay, anyway, so let's implement the pluck. Let's make a pluck function. Okay, let's make a pluck real world. Okay, so let's make a function that accepts, I don't know, accepts an array and a string that, I don't know, represents a property, a prop, name, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it returns an array containing, I don't know, try to make it hard but not too hard, containing, it returns an array which has that property basically. Containing that prop object. That prop for each object, I should say. Okay, so what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, like, example, I don't know, var people, right? So that would be like, I don't know, some kind of users. Okay, so var people would be like an array where you would have a name, I don't know, John. That should be an object. Okay, and then the second person would be like, I don't know, name would be Jane. I'm so creative. Wow. So what we would do, so let's say that's our array, right? Then we would do something like pluck, which is our function, pluck people. So we would pass in the array, right? Let's just make this, let's use this actually. So we'd put in people, and then we would pass in like the name, which is the property, right? And then we expect the return to be like an array of names. This is actually what I was trying to say. Now, do you understand what I mean by pluck now?
Inputs.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
Not like you pass information.
Yeah, we're gonna take out specific information from this. So how would I even do this? So like, what am I actually saying? I'm saying, so based on my example here, here's my array, and here's my property, because name is a property, right? So I'm going to say something along the lines of, like, I'm gonna make a function, right? And it's gonna accept an array, right? And it's gonna accept a property, okay? And you see, my implementation is not specific to the array. I'm making a modular like function. So I'm using functional programming to make a super generic function or super generic method that's going to accept any array and any property and then return a subset. Okay? So we're going to do something like, we need the return statement. No return, no fun. Okay, I'm going to do, okay, so what the heck am I doing? Okay, so I'm going to do a function here. Okay, so each element in the array, right? So array has a bunch of elements, right? Each element is our object, right? So each element in the array, I want to take the element and the property. Right? So how does this work? Like you guys know, for example, let's say people, right? If I were to loop through it, my first loop would be this one, right? So this would be element, right? And how would I access John? I would do like, I don't know, element at name, right? Mm-hmm. But it would have to be a string because it's JSON, otherwise it won't work, right? So that's actually what I'm trying to do here. What I'm saying is, here's my property, right? So here's my array. So I'm going to loop through the array the same way we looped here. Here's my pluck, right? Like here's my pluck, right? So for each car, or for each element in the cars array, I'm going to call, but here's dot notation, but we don't know what it is. We have to pass it, right? So we can't use dot notation here. We have to kind of use the other way, right? What's tripping out here? Why are you tripping? Okay, well, let's finish it off here. Okay. So what am I trying to do here? Return. I need to return again. I need to return the property. So basically make sure to return the computed value. So basically I am going to look for the specific key. Remember key value in a particular iteration of the array. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Although something's weird here. What is it saying? Okay. Function. Oh. It's like, what is wrong with this thing? Cool. So, okay. So I'm going to call it pluck. I'm going to go through the array. Each element in the array, I'm going to look for the property I've passed in, which is going to give me, which is basically the key for that particular item in the array. Okay? Then I'm going to console log. Then I'm going to call it. So now we're going to do something cool here. We're going to do pluck, right? And then we're going to do pluck people. Okay, let's ramp it up to pluck. Age is 15. Age, so that we know that we're specifically picking the one. Okay, like, you know what I mean? Because I don't want it to be convoluted, right? Element's not defined, duh, because we need to pass it. And then I need to do people, and I need to do, let's say, name. Okay, why is element not defined? Okay, return array math, and then function. Map takes a callback. So for each element, that's weird. Return, you write it in an ES6 fashion. Function, pluck. Let's just say it takes an array and a prop, right? And then return array dot map, and open the map, and we're going to say each element is going to return the element at the prop. Oh, obviously. Duh. Such a fail. Cool. I was like, what? This works, man. I'm like, what the hell is read? Okay, so don't do my mistake. Don't put random variables somewhere else. I'm dumb. I should have read it. It would have told me what line it was on, but that's what happens. Cool.
You know how in this example you have the square bracket when you return elements, square bracket property?
Correct.
The previous example was like hard dot.
Oh, you're wondering why. Okay, the reason why is there's a big difference between element, for example, element dot prop, right? Property versus element at property, right? Because we're passing in a string, we need to do it like this. So whenever you have a string, so if you're trying to get a string, if you have a string and that string is going to be your key, you have to use square bracket. If you have a key that's not a string, then you can use dot notation.
Why can't you just pass it in as name, not a string?
Not a string? Well, because that was part of the condition, right? Because like what happens is this. Let's say this function here is like let's use what do we have? Let's use users. So let's say you have a site and then you're just like bringing in all your tweets, right? So you have a list of all the tweets. But you want somebody clicks a filter, for example, right? And that filter says like, I don't know, I only want to see people's names. Well, you need to get that from the actual array, right? But what happens if like somebody types in like, oh, I only want like John. I only want people whose name is John. Well, you're going to need to get that from some kind of a form. And whenever you pass the form or HTML in, it's going to come in as a string. Even if it's not a name, even if they don't fill it in, like when you use a radio button, it sends you back a string as well. So all the front-end frameworks, they return strings, and then you're going to pass those strings into the array as a property, and you have to use square bracket notation. It's just something you're going to have to get used to.
So square brackets, this is a way to get the value of the key, right?
It computes into the key, and then yeah, exactly. You get the value of the key. I see what you're saying, yep.
And whereas like with dot notation, does dot notation get you also the value?
Yes, but dot notation, you're accessing the property directly.
You need the key, right?
You're using the key. You know what the key is, right? But like in this case, let's say there's a radio button, right? Like, you know, when you click on a filter, like Amazon, like let's say you have products, right? And you're like, I only want to see products that are like, I don't know, Amazon Prime, right? Mm-hmm. Like the fast ship, right? Well, as soon as you click that, it sends to the back end, hey, I want you to pluck from the array of all products anything that has fast ship. But it sends that back as a string, and then they would then pass that to the array, run a map. That's actually what's happening on Amazon. Like it would send it back to the back end. It makes an AJAX call. AJAX call sends them all the products. As soon as you hit the filter, you don't make another AJAX call. You just re-render a filtered list. So they map through the list and then re-render it based on anything that would have, like the subset would be anything that had that property. That property comes as a string from the radio button, for example. Because you know how like radio buttons have like a value, it has a name, it has different stuff to it, right? And when you actually get that, like let's say you use like a query selector or you hit the submit, whenever you hit submit on something, right, it sends an AJAX call, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you send those AJAX calls, it's always JSON, and JSON is key value pairs, but they're string. So that's kind of like the same idea. It's just here it's not technically a string, but in order to access it this way, you would need to use it as a string.
Yeah, I guess the difference is that you will need to type it as a parameter in order to access it. There's no way you can know what the key value is. So in this case,
Yeah, exactly. Like you would have to bring it in from the front end somehow, and it's going to come
yeah,
in as a string. You don't know
yeah,
what
because
it is.
name doesn't, you can't access name by
Yeah,
itself.
exactly. And this is a generic function. Like you don't know what this
Yeah,
property could be. It could be anything.
yeah.
And the whole
It could
point
be
is that,
age or anything.
yeah, this function, you would make like hundreds of calls to this function. All this function's job, it doesn't care what array, and it doesn't care what the properties are in the array.
It
All
gives
it
you
ca-
the value.
all it cares about, exactly, all it cares about is let's find the specific thing in the array and let's pluck all the things that correlate to that and create a subset. And
Oh,
see,
I see the difference now. Basically, because you're using the property, you're using it. There's no such thing as property in the array, right?
exactly,
There's no key called property in the array, so you're passing in the property.
exactly, exactly,
So you have to pass it in as a string, one,
exactly,
and then so in this case you need to use it as a square bracket
exactly. Because
instead of dot notation.
yeah, because we don't really know what's going to come in from the front end, so we have to make it robust enough that it won't break. And this right here, guys, this is like if this is something that you're going to be using on your app a lot. Like it doesn't matter what your data set is. What matters is that you can do something with it. This implementation, this little function right here is used like in almost every app I've seen. It may not be called pluck. It may be called like handle response or show users or like whatever, right? Cool. Okay. See, finished map. Okay, let's move on to filter here. Cool. So filter is kind of like, so what was Martin was kind of saying. Let's use touch filter.js, index, and let's use filter. Misspelt it. Cool. So, let's just say here. So filter, it's a common UI feature. Common UI feature to filter out subsets of data, like filtering some products on a page on Amazon, let's say, right? So I'm just gonna do a little, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna go quickly here. Our products is equal to an array, and each product has a name, and let's say it's glasses, and this is like, we're going to use Amazon here as an example, okay? And let's say it's casual wear, right? This is like, again, this is all stuff that's super relevant because you're going to be using this all the time. And let's say casual formal, formal, casual, formal, right? Let's say the next casual item is a t-shirt. The next one is a suit. And let's say instead of glasses, let's say another formal wear would be dress pants. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so what's the use case? Use cases? Okay, basically let's say these are products, right? On a product page, right? On a product page, right? And maybe we're gonna use that. Maybe the user clicks on a filter, right? And that filter triggers some kind of subset to re-render on your front end. Okay, what does that really mean? It means that whenever I write an array of objects, it represents, this stuff here represents a collection, like for example, products.all. You guys are familiar with this, right? So basically it represents products.all response from controller via Ajax call. Okay, makes sense, right? So you load a page, like for example, like Amazon.ca. You go here, right? Like it literally just did that. It just, and you can find, it's easy to find out. Watch this. Let's say, I don't know, I don't have a store apparently, but see all deals, okay? Let's go to the network tab. Come on. Okay, let's reload this page. Boom, boom, boom. Look at all the stuff that loads, right? And let's see here. Okay, let's see this product here. Sept. Which network is this? Okay, maybe this one is load. Wow, it loads a lot. Okay, this is a post request. Okay, so it sends a request to a URL. It's a get, right? And then response, let's see the it's a GIF. Hey, maybe this wasn't a good example. Maybe Amazon's too crazy. Let's see, Kijiji. Let's see what they're using here. Okay, this buy and sell. I don't know. Let's just say, I don't know, BMW. Since we're on that topic. Right, so we got a collection here. They're using React. So I'm going to go to React DevTools here. Right? You guys have React DevTools? Like watch. You see here, this is all table rows. You see how it's like picking different stuff up? So these guys are really convoluted too. Okay. Anyways, without getting too crazy here, the idea here is description. Okay. What's the top level component? Oh, they really don't want you to see what they do, eh? Okay. Okay. Well, they're shielding it. But my point here, the point I'm trying to make here, is that you load this list here, right? As soon as I click on, I only want Audi, for example, it's going to re-render and make a filtered list of only 7 items, right? So that's essentially the functionality we're trying to recreate. And it's no different. It's going to re-render something on your front end as soon as you hit that, right? So like, how does that even work? So what we're going to do with filter, first we're going to do it the ES5 way. We're going to show you how filter works, okay? This is actually, so filtered products ES5, right, is equal to an empty array, okay? Now for, basically for products, what? Come on. Come on. I'm trying to be lazy and it's not cooperating with me. Okay, so for products, right? For each product, right? And then here I'm going to say if, right? So if the product that we're currently looking at, products.I, okay, dot type, right? So let's look for, I don't know, let's look for anything that's casual, right? So let's say somebody clicks on a filter and they want like only casual clothing, right? Then I want to only show those products to the user, right? So then we have to push that particular product, right, which is products@I. Okay? And then we're going to log console log table LTG LGT, no, whatever, LT, okay, console.log.table, and then we're going to say filtered ES5. I'm going to start using table here. Cool. Okay, so nothing crazy here, but again, I'm going to make another use case here. This here is a lot of shit going on here, okay? First of all, I got to set up an array. Then I got to set up the for loop. Then I got to keep track of, okay, for all the products at index I, the type, I need to make sure if it equals to casual. Okay, so here's my conditional. If this boolean is true, then I need to push that. So it's going to keep doing that for the whole array, right? So, I mean, oops, that's cool. It works, but we're not doing that no more, man. That's total trash, right? This is an exact case of why we would not want to mutate an original array, as the filter should, right? Because what's happening here is like we don't want to change the original response. We're trying to create a new response, and that's essentially what happens when you do this. Come on, close. Like when I do that, that's all it's doing. Like if I click on, I don't know, this one has 3 cars. When I click on that, that's all it does. It says it goes to that original response, and then it filters it. It's not doing anything magic. Like it's literally doing this, but it's doing it in a more intuitive way. So let's just say this is an exact case for why we would not mutate data, but rather use filter to create a new array to display the subset of the data from the records that were pulled from the DB. Wow, can't spell today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But why? How would you mutate data?
Well, what happens if you don't do this? What happens if you just say only display the data? So you're going to go through the loop, and then you're just going to say return products@I. So like the issue is you want to keep the original data, but there's really no way to do it intuitively other than doing this.
Okay, creating a new array, right?
Creating a whole new array, right? But but when the issue comes down to this, there's a lot of stuff going on here, just like we did with the map. It's the same idea. You're creating a new array and then you're doing something with it. It's just what filter does is it takes a boolean and anything that meets the boolean condition. So if it's true, then it goes into a new array. This is actually what filter does, like literally. So version with filter helper. So we're going to see right now, we're going to say again, var filtered, super simple, turd is equal to products dot filter, right? And I'm going to say function, I'm going to say this function accepts a product, right? Because it's plural. And then what I'm going to do is all I care about, okay? And then we're going to try using a different filter. We're going to look for the formal stuff, okay? All I really care about is does the product, so I need to return, remember, return is the most important part here. we're going to return any product that the type is equal to, let's say, formal in this case. And then we're going to log, we're going to console.table. It's CLT? Okay, CLT. Console.table filtered. And here it is. Do you not agree? Like, look at these two side by side. Like, look how much is going on here. It's a lot of room for error. Like, I'm not telling you that for loops don't work. And anybody who tells you for loops are shit, or for loops don't work, or that's dumb, they just don't understand what's going on. Okay? Most people, they may have learned this or may have seen this and started using it, but they don't actually know that this is what it's doing. So again, it's not about for loops don't work. It's more about writing less code to do the same thing, and intuitively, as soon as I see this, I know exactly what's going on. You're filtering products that are formal. That's it. I don't need to look at, I don't need to make sure, okay, dot type of each product at this index is casual. Then I'm pushing that thing to this array as long as I'm not out of the array. Okay, and oh, there it is. Like, you understand like how the logic gets a little bit confusing? Okay, am I crazy, or am I just like, is this stuff making sense?
Yeah, it's making sense.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So let's ramp it up here. Let's take it to the next level. I'm going to show you how good this stuff gets and why the minute, like, this is a super simple example, but let's say you want to show me, and this is like Amazon again, show me all casual clothing that is in stock and less than $10. Now, if you were to do a for loop for this, you're going to cry. Because literally what's going to happen is you'd have to if this, and if this, and if this, and then you'd have to just keep chaining all this stuff, which is not really cool, right? So what we're going to do is, this is the use case. We're going to make this here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a quantity of 0, right? And a price of 1, right? So this one will not display because it meets the price condition but not the quantity condition. Cool? This one is going to be, I don't know, quantity 10, price 14. This one, let's do price is 8 and quantity is 7. So this is the only one we expect to get back, okay? Price 150, I don't know, quantity 20. I don't know, whatever. Cool. So again, like, you would get a collection back from your server, and then whatever your app is, when a user tries to interact with it, you're going to show a subset of data that comes from your server, right? And basically all that is we're going to do it again. We're going to say filter use case, I don't know, whatever, is products. Again, we're going to use our handy dandy products dot filter, right? And we're going to say the function here, I'm going to set up a product, same thing, right? We're going to open that function up, and we're going to say return. We're going to return, okay? Now I'm going to use a little bit of some funky syntax here, okay? I want you to pay attention to the console here, okay? I think I've showed you this. Okay, if a condition equals to true, okay, and let's say hello, I'm going to get hello. You see that? If the condition is false, it will never execute hello. and, okay? You see this and? So where does this matter? I want casual clothing. So if it's casual, give me true, right? If it's in stock, give me true. And if it's less than 10 bucks, give me true. Only then return the product. So true, and true will always equal to true. Does this logic here make sense? Have you seen this before?
No.
Okay. It's a shorthand for an if statement. So basically, if this is true, show me hello. If it's false, obviously return false. It's false. You will never equate to the side part. So we're gonna use this handy dandy. By the way, where this really makes a lot of stuff, like for example, in React, you would do something like if product dot, I don't know, ID, for example. So if the product exists, render my component. And then you would put like render some component. And then you would just wrap that like, and you don't even need an if statement. So what would happen in React, a lot of the time what you're going to do is, well, maybe I'll just put like, component. So unless the product exists, you will never render the component. And that's like a super handy trick, okay? Remember that.
Sentence means if it exists, right?
Yeah, so if the left side is true, then move on to the right side until there's no more right side left. So we're going to implement that right now. So watch. If the product dot type is equal to casual, right? So if this is true, then check if the product is in stock. So in other words, the product dot quantity is greater than 0, right? If both of those are true, then go ahead and check if the product dot price is greater than 10. Less than 10, sorry. What am I saying? Only, and then let's do here. Let's do a separation here. I'm just making a separation so it's easier. And it was L console CLT. And let's do filter use case. And we get it. Okay, so let's go through. This part here is critical. Okay, so Prettier put a little situation here. It's not required. Like, you honestly don't need it. It's up to you, whatever. Prettier kind of fixed it, but you can actually do it on each line. It's up to you. Prettier just put it that way. Essentially, it's check this. If it's true, then check this. If it's true, then check this. Wait, there's nothing else to check? Then filter will only push an item into a new array if the conditions evaluate to true. So like the for loop, if this is true, then push it onto an array. What was I going to say? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You only push whatever is meeting those three.
Exactly. Now, just so you guys know, the same works for OR. You know how OR, right? Double pipes is OR, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same works for OR, but it's the inverse. Okay? So like, if it's let's say false or hello, you're going to get hello. But if you do and, you get false. You see the difference? Honestly, if ever in doubt, just open up the console, start typing some random shit. And then you're going to find out very quickly if something works or doesn't. That's how I learned this portion. There's also an... Sorry?
False or hello, why is it hello?
I'm sorry?
False or hello, why is it hello? Like, why does it come out to be hello?
What do you mean, like this?
Yeah, you're saying like false or hello?
Yeah, I just put whatever, like anything. I could put
Yeah,
true.
why?
Oh,
why-
because it's the inverse.
So it's just going to take whatever is true from the like starting from the right.
No, so or it says if it's false or this one, right? So only one has to be true. So so or statement will look for the first true value. If
Okay.
right? So the first true value. So strings are considered truthy, right? So it will keep going through it until it hits a true value. While if I put true right away, it exits. But and is different because and requires all of it to be true. So it will keep traveling until it hits a false. Otherwise, it returns true.
That's why false and hello will always be false because you're hitting false already.
Right away. Right? So you can do it like this way: true or false, right? Oops. True or false will always hit true, right? And
False or true will always be false. I mean, false or true will always be true.
yeah, and then but the and the thing about the and this is the tricky part. The and if it evaluates to true, it moves on to the next one. So that's the caveat. Okay?
So it will be false.
Because the and operator, it says, is the previous item true? Yes. Okay, I'm moving on. Right? But if it hits a false, it exits and it never returns true because all the statements have to be true.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was a little aside. Not many people use that or know too much about that. Okay, so let's use use case number 3. Use case number 3. Let's say var post. Let's say we have a blog app or a form where posts can have multiple comments and we want to see all the comments associated with a specific post. So this is pretty real world. Like this is basically Twitter or Facebook or Reddit. You know what I mean? Like you have Reddit, somebody makes a post and people are like reply to the post, right? Like LinkedIn is like that too, right?
Yep.
So, and I'm sure if you have an application that's going to allow people to respond, then that's kind of how it's going to work, right? So we're going to do something like this is my new blog post and it's awesome AF. Okay, and then we have a second model. So basically we have an association now, right? And we're going to have comments, right? And this should be no, actually no, we can leave it as an object. But the comments will be an array of objects, right? Because this is actually coming in from, this is someone's reply. So post comes in from the front end by a user's submission. Does that make sense?
I have a question that is, for example, if you want to iterate through, like, you know how there's it's kind of like a for loop, but you iterate through the keys, like key in this.
Yep.
that when you do that, why would you do that instead of, for example, using map to get the keys?
Hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
You know, like it's kind of like a loop as well, but only
Which
for
one? What's the helper?
yeah, like the saying like 4 key in.
Oh, okay. 4 in and 4 of.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with them. They're meant for objects because objects are not iterable. You see how these are wrapped in square brackets?
Uh-huh.
So those are for objects. It's in order to be able to loop through objects. That's why it's for key in an object.
Yeah.
Because normally what you would have to do is you would have to convert it. You'd have to like destructure it into an array and then try to loop through it, right? So that's part of the issue.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're not there yet, to be honest with you. But I mean, you're welcome to go check it out, but you got to be really careful with it, okay?
Okay.
And some of them you can, one of them you iterate through an object, but you cannot stop. So like, let's say you're looking for, I don't know, post ID of like 7, but there's like 1,000 posts.
Yeah.
You would have to go through all 1,000 posts, even though you found your first one.
Oh, okay, I see.
Right? There's no, so like what happens, that's what happens with the for each loop. So with the for, I can't remember if it's for off or for in, it allows you to break out of it as soon as you find your post. Anyways, let's finish this one here. Good idea. Maybe I will try it. I don't know, whatever. And wow. Thanks. Thanks so much. Cool. So we made some like posts. So okay, let's look at it again. We have a post and there's an association here. Let's say it's 14, 29, I don't know. So there's a post and each comment is related to a post ID. Let's do 4 here. Let's make two comments relate to the same post. Okay, makes sense, right? So let's make a function. Okay, so let's make a function.
Can I just verify something?
Yep.
Post ID 4, is that related to the post on top?
Correct. Exactly.
That has the ID 4?
I'm sorry?
So they're both like the comments that have post ID 4, they're
Related.
that post on top, right?
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get all the comments that relate to this particular post, which is kind of like how you would do it if, let's say, somebody clicks on Reddit, like for example, Reddit, right? Let's say this is a post, right? So I click on the post, right? And then Reddit has all these replies, right? So you see the post ID is somewhere here. It's one of these, it's probably, this is the post ID, even though it doesn't look like it, that would be the post ID. And let's see here, inspect.
Wouldn't there be a number that gets created for every?
It is, but
comment?
you can hide it. I accidentally clicked on some other random stuff. Today was the meme. You can see this is the whole response. Yeah, they're hiding it. So you can't like try to guess it. We do the same thing on my work. We don't let people know what the product number is. We just tell them what the name is. Like for example, like if it's a product, We don't want, like, what it product number 7789 doesn't mean anything to anybody, but like safety glasses with a tint does. You know what I mean? Anyways. Okay, so we're gonna make a function that accepts the post and the comments. And the comments array, so we can compare and create the Boolean for the filter. Cool. So let's do that. Let's do comments for posts. And then we're going to take a post, right? Like we said. And we're going to take the comments. So we take the individual post. And then we take the comments array. And then what we're going to do is we're going to return comments. This is why this is so much better than a for loop. Because we can return it directly, right? Like here in the for loop, we'd have to do all of this. And then try to pass it in, right? But with the array helper, we can just return it directly. So we go dot filter function, and it accepts a comment, right? Because it's comment out of all comments, right? And for each, and then we have to return again because it's a function. The callback will return undefined, like we said before. And then we have to return a comment.post ID. So each post ID for the comment, so each comment's post ID, if it's equal to the actual post that we passed, its ID. So for each, so this post, if the ID is equal to the associated ID, then return it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to log, we're going to do log CLT comments for post comments. You see it? So nothing too crazy here, like it's nothing too fancy. The main things that we got to remember here, we got to remember a couple of things here. A, we're dealing with two different sets of data. So we have to pass all the data that's coming in. So, you know, when you're working with stuff from the back end, you make a call and then you're going to get other data back in, right? And this particular data is coming from the front end and this particular data is coming from the back end. Okay? So essentially what we're going to do is you're just going to return, like, for example, you're going to filter out all the comments, but you're going to take each comment and check the relation between the two, and that's the subset that you get back. And you can see it here, the two. Now, if I were to go, like, for example, like 12, you can see the function automatically re-renders. And that's actually what React does. As soon as somebody, let's say somebody deletes the post, right? React, your component will re-render on someone else's page. So, you know, like on Reddit or whatever, if somebody were to be like, you know what, I don't like this post anymore. I don't like my reply. I'm just going to delete my reply, right? Like if I go to reply and then I'm like, I don't like it, I'm going to delete it. That's actually what it would do. It would just go like null, for example. And then it would re-render instantly, and that's it. That post disappears.
I have a question.
What's up?
Console.table with the function comments for posts. Is it necessary to put in the post and comments inside the parentheses?
In here, you must.
You must?
Yeah.
You have to put those in?
Yeah, because see the function here. Let's say I made it more implicit, but really it takes an array of posts, right? It takes it takes a post object, right? And this takes a comments array, right? So I need to change this to post object, right? And then I need to change this to comments array, and then it will work, right? Because you see here, because this is actually our declaration,
Oh, I see what you mean.
right?
You're actually you're actually passing in the post and the comments. The post
Exactly.
object and then comments array as those values into the function.
Yeah, exactly. Because you would do something like URL, I don't know, method, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you would do something like data type, right? And then you would do like something like success, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do like callback, something like that, right? Don't worry about the syntax. In here, your data, right? Your response, right? Your response might be the comments, or it might be the posts, right? So your response could be a couple of things, right? And then in your response, then you would do something like response dot, I don't know, you would do like response, right? Dot comments or something, and then dot filter, and then you do like whatever, pass it in, right? Is that gonna make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Because you would get the post, normally you would get the post ID from the URL. Like for example, let's say if it was, actually I probably shouldn't do that, but let's say if it was like, I don't know, something, something, let's just say if it was like ID, let's say if it was like that, you would get the post ID from params because you're on the back end, right? So you would already know the post ID from the front end, from the GET request, right? So that's why you would only need to fetch or get the comments from the back end. Anyways, cool. So let's do this. Just so that it's implicit. See below is a list of whatever's. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, let's actually do. Ooh. Okay, let's do 2 more filters. Filters are really powerful. I have an object here. I have another practice here. Okay, so let's do this. Practice number 2. Okay, find only the users that have admin rights. This is very common. So like let's say you have like var users is equal to an array of objects and it has an ID of 1 and admin true, for example, right? What the heck? Yeah, that makes more sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. So they say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. False. Let's do a couple of falses here. False. False, right? Cool, so we expect 1, 2, 3, right? Let's do another true. So we have like okay, so we only have one admin, which is user 5, right? So this is again another really simple use case, and then we're not going to do anything fancy here. We're just going to do is admin, right? Is going to equal to the users dot filter, and then here we're going to do a function that's going to accept the user, and then the user dot admin, and that's all. So the reason why I'm doing this example like so is you see here we had to do a comparison, right? But we can actually just return a statement. this return, if you do this, this returns true or false. So you just, so you don't actually have to do like stay away from this, for example. If user dot admin equals true, return true. Stay away from this. This will work in this case, but it's really bad practice. You don't need to do it. It's extra code, and it could actually break because you can run into truthy and falsy values. Like there's edge cases. Like a -1 is a false, but if you do that, like
How do you do it if how do you like return like false?
how do you return false? This statement will return true or false always.
No, I mean how do you return something that is not admin? A user that's not admin. Put the exclamation
Yep.
before the user?
Yeah, exactly. The inverse, right? So we're gonna do is admin. And you can see here, user 5. This is why I use console.table. It's just a lot easier, right? And you can see here, user 5 is the only admin. Okay, cool. Let's take your example. And let's use it as, let's make it a hard one. Challenge hard one. Okay, cool. So let's create a reject. So let's do the inverse. Let's reject anything that doesn't meet a condition. Right? So let's create a reject function that does the opposite of what the filter function is expected to do. So what I mean by that is if the function returns true, then exclude that item from the array. Cool? Makes sense? So what I'm saying is if var nums is equal to 1, 2, 3, right? Then var I don't know. Actually, let's do 10, 20, 30. Let's say var less than 20 equals reject the array, and then pass in a function which would accept a number and then return any number that is greater than, I don't know, 15. I don't know, whatever. And that one loud, where the number is greater, no, where the number is less than 20, right? And this will log, this logs 10. Okay, cool, let's walk through it here. So what does it mean? It means that I'm just trying to go through the filter function, and I'm going to show you that you're not stuck with just true and false. You actually can do anything with it. Like, it's really flexible. So you can pretty much decide to use a filter to filter against anything that you don't want, or you can filter against stuff that you do want. Okay, does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just copy this. Okay, cool. Okay, let's do nums. Okay, let's do function reject. And then, okay, so again, one of the main reasons why I taught you guys modularity and functional programming is because you guys really need to understand that in order to really understand how to make like blueprint functions. Because this is a blueprint function. All the stuff we've been doing is super generic. Except like the harder ones are all about making generic functions which can be reused. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make a reject function which accepts an array and accepts an iterator function, which is a fancy way of saying it accepts a callback, okay? Let's just call it a callback. Accepts a callback. Or actually, let's keep it as an iterator function. Okay, cool. And okay, so this is a generic func that accepts a callback, then passes that callback as the conditional for the logic in the filter. Okay, so we're literally modifying how the filter works, which again, I'm going to reiterate that if you don't understand ES5, if you didn't learn vanilla JS, then there's literally no way that you can understand how to break it down and modify these functions. Cool. Okay. You're gonna need, now this stuff here, so I'm gonna give you a little hint here. You're gonna need a return statement inside the first block, as there are parentheses, and we need the return keyword for a block. Okay, that's a really fancy way of saying you kind of need a return statement inside a return statement. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. This fancy stuff just literally translates to this. Array.filter, which you guys know now. It's going to take a function. The function takes an element. Remember like the other challenge we did? Right? And that element, okay, if it's not the iterator function, okay, if it's not the element passed to the iterator function, okay, then I want to return that. So let's walk through this again. I'm going to make a function that's going to crawl through the array. If the return value of that function is true, so for example, if it returns true, right, the outcome, bang function will convert it to false. This is the inverse. Does this make sense? It's what you were talking about, Celia.
Okay. So, okay, so because filter is supposed to just take it if it's true, right?
Exactly.
Whatever is true. So in this case, since you put the inverse, like the exclamation mark, so it's going to be whatever is not true is going to be filtered. Is that what it is?
Exactly. So I rewrote it as the exclamation will turn the false value to a true output, and we will receive those items in our new array. Cool. So
whatever is false will be filtered.
Exactly. We'll pass through. So let's do var less than 20. Let's implement that same thing, which is going to equal to reject at numbers. So we're going to pass in numbers. Okay, and then we're going to pass in our function here. It's anonymous, doesn't need anything. Okay, so our iterator function is going to accept a couple of things. It's going to accept the number. This is what we like to call a modifier. Okay, this function here is a modifier because we're going to modify the way filter works by passing it a callback. If you recall, we did something like that here. Remember we did add and passed add to it? Where was it? Remember we did it here? It was a modifier. That's all we're doing here, in essence. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is, so return only the number that is less than 20. So only return a number that is less than 20, and then we're gonna log CLT the less than 20. Re-render. What happened here? So I got an empty array. Numbers. Okay, so I messed up. See how I got an empty array? Watch this. See that?
Mm-hmm.
This is why the return keyword is so, and like, watch, I get rid of the exclamation, it's only going to give me 10. It's actually return any number greater than 20. This is going to give me 10. What? Okay, no, my logic here is bad. So return any number is greater. Oh. That's weird. 10, 20. If the number, let's say we do this. Okay, I see. It was, for some reason, it was taking the 20, but cool. Anyways, whatever. You get the point, right? Are you guys okay with this?
Yeah, it gives you the opposite of whatever you're asking.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you the
You're
opposite.
asking less than 20 gives you everything greater than 20.
Exactly.
Can you explain the part about like passing in the callback?
This one here? So,
Yeah.
basically all we're doing is, so we make a generic function, but we want to modify how filter works, right? So we need something that's going to evaluate to true or false. And that's our iterator function. So for every single element in this array, we're going to run this iterator, which is a modifier. We expect a result from it. Based on that result, we're going to create a new array. So what ends up happening here is we're just passing it in directly, but I could do it like, for example, I could do it like this. I could do, for example, function, I don't know, less, check if 20, I don't know, just call it that, right? Check if 20, right? And then here we can do check if 20. You're gonna see it works the same way. See? So now it's truly a callback. But essentially what's happening is this. We have an array, we have a callback, right? When we loop through the array, we're gonna invoke the callback. And we're gonna return anything. All the callback does is returns true or false. So if it meets the condition, then we're going to return that item. That's all it's doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that callback can be anything. And in this case, it's if it's check if 20, right? So
Exactly.
That's what into the region function.
Yeah, exactly. It could be whatever you want, right? We're just using like a simplified example so it's easier to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But that's essentially the deal.
Okay. So in this case, instead of like putting that function inside of that function, you're putting it like separately.
Yeah, it's this is the cleaner way to do it, right? Because it's less code. But some people put the function directly in there because some people will argue that why separate it when this is actually part of the package? I mean, it's already modular through reject itself.
Yeah, so technically you can put this function check if 20 inside this function, right? Reject function.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But we're trying to keep it as modular as possible. You would not want to do that mainly because then you can reuse this anywhere,
Yeah, that's true. You
right?
can pass in any other callback function.
Anything you want. This is part of the point that I'm trying to drive, that when you're going to be working on your final projects, try to think of these functions as like little machines. The machine is really good at doing one thing. This machine is really good at letting you know if a number is less than is greater than 15. Right? This machine is really good at rejecting anything that's less than 15. Right? But this machine here, which is like, like this machine here, its sole purpose is to go through an array and spit out a specific element. And that element it requires a modifier. So like we're just complicating the machine a little bit, but this machine does one thing really, really good, which is filter stuff. That you kind of see where I'm going with this stuff?
Yeah.
Cool.
The element that is also arbitrary, right?
Arbitrary, yeah. But like it's convention. An array has an element, or some people do item for each item in the array. I mean, it's up to you. I like elements. Some people do this, EL. Some people do like, I don't know. People do all sorts of weird stuff. If you see somebody that goes like X, and then for Y and X, just run away from those people. Swear to God, there's.
I have a question. At the end, when you put like reject numbers and then you put check if 20, is this a way to pass like the array and activate like the check if 20 function at the same time with that array?
What do you mean, like?
So in numbers is the array, right?
Numbers is the array, correct?
And then the next thing you're passing to
the callback.
Yeah. Check if 20, and so first thing you call here is reject. So that's the upper function, right?
This is our machine, our generic machine. So what you're saying is, why don't I check this inside here?
I know, I'm just trying to understand like fully, because
I think what Martin is saying, like at the bottom where you put var less than 20 reject, and then in brackets you put numbers and check if 20. You just if you're passing in the numbers as the array, and check if 20 as the
as the function, like if you're passing it.
Yes. But the reason, I guess you're getting confused because I'm not doing this, right?
Yeah.
Is that right, Martin? Like you're confused, why don't I do this, right?
Yeah, okay. So you're calling you're passing the callback function as a parameter?
Exactly, yeah.
And then you're passing the array.
Yeah, I'm passing the array and the function and the array and the callback as parameters. And then reject function, the actual machine, will decide what to do with it afterwards.
What does it do with the function though?
It calls it here.
Iterator function. Oh, okay.
Right? Because the reason why I call that an iterator function, and this is actually a term. It's like it's actually a term. So when you look at MDN array prototype each.
So in this case, this reject function is really just checking if this iterator function is passing or not, right?
Exactly.
And
And
it doesn't matter whatever that iterator function is. It can be any other function that's being passed in.
yeah, exactly. It could be whatever. Like if you're checking, like if my check if 20 is actually check if number is greater that is equal to, like I'm cool, this will fail, right? Hold on, this Zoom thing is in the way. This is gonna fail. It's not gonna return anything. It's gonna return all of them, right? Because it's only like so. If I go like that, it returns an empty.
String. When the condition is a string.
Right. So this that's what I'm trying to get at. So if I take out the exclamation mark, every single time I check against the number, it's going to be a falsy value because it's going to, right? So then it's going to return nothing. But if I say turn this into true, if I get a false, it doesn't matter what number I have in the array. I could have like hundreds of numbers. It will always return all of them because this will always be false. Undefined is a falsy value. The opposite of false is true. So we'll return all the numbers. So you got to be really careful with it. Like you got to be careful with the way you structure conditionals, because a lot of the times, especially on the front end, where you're going to be rendering stuff like only show this if the user is an admin. You know what I'm saying? So you would put like not admin, don't render, or admin render. Like you put admin and your component, right? Like remember I did this. It would be like this, admin equals true, for example, right? And then I would say admin and show component. And the reason why I'm putting a string is so it doesn't break, because otherwise it would scream like show component is not defined, right? Like you see that? So if let's say you had a function that computes admin equals true, like this, right? Mm-hmm. Then you would go like, if it's an admin, then show this component. So as long as admin computes to true, it will show the component. This is very, very common React. It's pretty much a lot of ES6 is like that now. Like a lot of the code base, like let's see, terminal. I'll show you some. Like this is a React component, right? I go, like let's do something here, like products, like progress bar. I would say get the percentage, right? Whatever, render it, right? And then return, right? So this is like standard stuff, right? But you see here, display percentage. If there's a percentage, then display this. If there's no percentage, then display this. If the percentage is not equal, then display something else. And all of these are conditionals to display a percentage, like a progress bar. Or I would...
kind of...
Sorry?
This is not like everything, like all the conditions that you need to pass. Like display percentage is true and it's not percent. Like no percent. No percentage.
Yeah, not percentage. So percentage is something else. It's computed, right? Percentage is coming from... So don't worry about like the actual stuff. Just worry about the and.
So is this like if-else condition or is like...
Yes, exactly. It's basically if-else conditions within... But you can't write if-else inside the return statement. So you have to do this trick. This is a React trick. You can't write an if condition. You have to write the if condition out here. You see how I have an if condition here? It can only be, and it has to be outside when you do a class. But we'll talk about classes later. Anyways.
But so this is like used differently than like, how in vanilla JavaScript is like and is like you have to pass both conditions, right?
Correct. But this is actually, but this is part of vanilla JavaScript. Like, this is, see, I go into the node terminal, right? True, and like show. This is part of the JavaScript implementation. This is not ES6 at all. It's just that there are different use cases for it. Like, for example, I'll give you something else, like right here. This is called a ternary operation. This is another type of if statement. I go, if an error exists, if it's true, is it true? If it's true, show the error status. Otherwise, don't show anything. An empty string, okay? An empty string is a falsy value. Okay? So if I don't have an error, then I return nothing, an empty string. So if it's an empty string, it's a false, then I go ahead and display that. Sorry, this is my bad. If it's true, I get an error status. If it's not true, so in other words, if I don't have an error, then I get an empty string. The empty string is considered truthy. So like for example, and show, you'll get the string because the string is truthy. But if you do or show, you'll get that. Because if shows, I don't know, console.log show. I don't know if this is going to work. Well, it returns on the fine. Actually, this is a good use case. All right, whatever. I'm in the node console, which is a little bit different, but anyways, you guys get the point here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can I ask you something about that show component? So basically, like if it's true, and show component, it's only going to show component when it's true, right?
Correct. Yeah. So like if you're using this example, if you were like a regular user, so like for example, you would have like state, right? And state is equal to admin, default admin is equal to false, right? For example. I know it's not legit. It says invalid property, whatever, right? It's actually like that, right? So you'll go state admin is false, right? But you would say load, then you go load all the users, right? This is an exact use case of this particular filter. You would say, as soon as you load your, and then you would go component did mount. You know how, did you guys do that yet?
For React, right?
Yeah. So then you would, in the component did mount.
Cycles.
Yeah, so when you go into the component did mount, you would then do an AJAX call to fetch all the users, right? And then you would say, if the current user, right, then you'd filter through it and figure out if there's any admins. And then from there, you would say, okay, now that I have an array of admins, is the current user inside that admin array? If the answer is yes, then return true. Then you would set state to admin is true. And then you would display that other component, which would be like...
The lifecycle of did mount is after you get a response, right?
Yeah.
Is after something loads.
It has to mount. So like if you get a 500, did mount won't fire.
Yeah. So did mount is after the call. Like whatever happens after it loads or something.
Yeah, it's after it loads the virtual DOM. Yeah. It has to like load. It has to like literally. You know how you attach it to a mounting point. So as soon as it renders, as soon as it hits render, it would load that. And then you go, okay, is the component on the page? Yes. Okay, go ahead and do these other functions.
And will mount is the opposite of that.
Yeah,
like
don't use will mount. I mean, you could, but don't use will mount.
Okay.
Same with like component did on mount. Like a lot of that stuff is getting deprecated.
So just did mount is the most important.
Did mount is the one I use the most.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I can't really think of. Oops, whatever. did component. I think it's did mount. Is that right? Yeah, so I have, see how I'm doing it here, but it's not actually part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Component did mount. This is, I'm looking for JSX, none of this stuff. Okay. Set month. Okay, I see what's going on here. Okay, so you probably would. This is not my code. This is like legacy code. But like component will receive props. Like I can guarantee you, this is constructor props. You see this? This is old React, man. Default props. Prop types. Prop types is no longer. No, see ESLint React no array index. Yeah, see, like this is what I'm saying. You see, like, see how complicated this stuff is.
Yeah.
Right, and these are like, look, components and components and components, right? More components. So this is why I'm saying like no JavaScript well, because all this other, like all this stuff here, it may seem really trivial, but it's just a collection of all this stuff. And then after if you nail down working with data, which is 99% of your job as a developer, is basically taking some kind of data and displaying it in a certain way, then understanding React and knowing what to do, or when to mount a component, do this, or when it's not mounted, do that. After it loads, do something else. It's becomes really, really easy because it's all data driven, right? So as soon as you understand what you need to do with the data and why you're doing something with the data, it's really easy because you're just like, oh, okay, just that's it. You don't really have to give it too much thought after that. That's why nailing this stuff down is so instrumental. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. What we're going to do next time is we're going to do something even crazier. We're going to use the find, and we're going to use every, and then we're going to do reduce. I know we missed a lesson on Monday. So we'll see. When is your final class?
Final class?
Yeah.
It's I think this Thursday.
That's your last class?
Yeah, because Saturday we're going to start final project.
Wait, hold on. But you guys are done in December. Or no, November, right?
We're done in October.
Really?
Yeah. So our like last session, our very last like project day is like 13th of October.
13th of October. Okay, so we still have some time together.
So you're still going to run like review sessions during Wednesdays, like for the rest of the program, like until like.
I guess I have, as far as I know.
Probably like 3 more sessions, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to sneak an extra one in to catch up for you guys. Like, the issue is, I was really sick the 1 week.
Aw.
Yeah, I was brutes. And then, yeah, I mean, what can you really do, right? And then on Monday I had to go to U of T, Mississauga, right? But, anyways, so that's that. Let me think. Talk to the other people in the class and see what day would work, or I don't know. Maybe I'll put a poll up to figure out what day works with what. But we'll leave it at this right now. Okay?
Okay. All right.
Was this